the early 13th century, a time when plagues, famine, and endless wars haunted Europe, a time when people closed their doors at night with whispered prayers. Deep within the forests of Bohemia stood a Benedictine monastery, known for its strict discipline and a silence so heavy that even the wind seemed unwelcome there. The monks spent their days in prayer, in copying sacred texts, and in trying to carry the word of God into a broken world. But not everyone within those thick stone walls lived a life of virtue. There was a monk whose name was concealed in the monastery's records. Some claimed his name was Herman, others simply called him the scribe. Rumors surrounded him like a dark fog. Some said he studied forbidden texts of magic, others claimed he had broken his sacred vows, and there were those who believed he had attempted to steal the monastery's hidden treasure. Yet the most severe accusation was this: the monk had betrayed God himself. In the eyes of the church, this was no minor sin. In the Middle Ages, the greatest crime a monk could commit wasn't theft or deceit alone. It was to rise against the divine order, to defile the sanctity of his vows. One night, torches burned in the monastery's council hall. When the heavy doors closed, even the howling wind outside seemed to fall silent. The abbot, the highest authority in the monastery, read the charges in a deep voice. "You have broken your sacred vows. You have consorted with forces of darkness. You have desecrated the house of God." The monks lowered their heads. They all knew what was coming. The church was merciless, and the punishment for such blasphemy was among the most feared of all: to be walled up alive, a punishment not only of the body, but of the soul, an eternal separation from God. The very mention of it made younger monks tremble. It was not just death, it was damnation. The monk fell to his knees, but there was a strange, almost fanatical light in his eyes. He had not lost hope. Not yet. As the brothers prepared to take him away, he spoke suddenly. "I can write a book that will bring eternal glory to this monastery, a book containing all sacred wisdom, medical knowledge, history, and prayers of protection, a book that will be remembered for as long as mankind endures." The hall stirred. A book like that would take decades to complete. Yet the monk continued, "And I will write it in one single night." The monks whispered among themselves. One night? Impossible. But the idea of a miracle, of divine intervention, could not be ignored. After a long silence, the abbot delivered his final judgment. "If when the bell rings at dawn, the book you speak of lies finished before us, you shall be spared. If not, your punishment will be carried out at once." The monk was granted one final night, one last chance, one final path to salvation or eternal darkness. The door of his cell was shut. A single candle flickered over sheets of blank parchment. Outside, the monks prayed, while the sky darkened above the monastery like a descending veil. For everyone in that place, only one question remained. Could a man truly write one of the largest books in human history in a single night? Or would the desperate monk seek help from a far more terrifying source? The night deepened, and a suffocating silence spread across the monastery. The corridors, usually filled with quiet prayer and the rustle of robes, felt strangely hollow, as if something ancient and hungry was wandering through them, unseen, yet terribly present. Inside his cell, the monk sat alone. The candlelight trembled restlessly, as though it sensed a presence that human eyes could not yet see. Blank parchment lay before him, a mountain of pages impossible for a single man to fill before dawn. His quill hovered above the first page, but his hand refused to move. Sweat gathered on his brow, though the air had turned unnaturally cold. No prayer came to his lips, not anymore. Hours crawled by. The monk's breathing grew shallow. Desperation began to twist inside his chest like a living creature. He stared at the candle flame until his vision blurred, and then, voice cracking, barely louder than a dying man's whisper, he spoke. "If there is a power in this world that can help me, I call to you now. I offer my soul. Just give me the strength to finish this book." The candle extinguished, not by wind, not by breath. It simply died. Darkness swallowed the cell whole. The monk froze. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Then he heard it, a breath, slow, heavy, hot, like air exhaled from a furnace. Something was in the room with him. The stone walls pulsed with a low hum, like a monstrous heart beating deep beneath the earth. The shadows on the ceiling stretched and twisted until they no longer resembled anything human. And then, two embers opened in the dark. Eyes not like a beast's, nor like any mortal man's. Ancient, intelligent, amused. A voice rose behind them, not spoken with lips, but carved directly into the monk's mind. It sounded like a chorus of 1,000 serpents wrapped in silk. You call for help, and help has come. The monk fell to the ground, trembling, unable to speak or look away. The presence leaned closer, its form silhouetted by a brief sickly glow, horns like curved daggers, a jaw too wide, fingers that scraped the floor as though eager to tear it apart. I can write your book, the voice whispered, and the world will never forget it. But you already know my price. The monk's voice cracked like dry wood as he answered, my soul, take it, just finish it. A sound echoed, half laughter, half scream, like bones grinding together. The quill lifted from the floor by no human hand. Pages began to fill at a frantic pace, ink flowing like living shadows. Hours of labor turned into seconds. Words formed that the monk could not even read. Sacred text, forbidden rituals, cures, curses, history and heresy bound in the same breath. The cell throbbed with power, horrible, intoxicating power. When dawn finally reached the monastery, the bell rang. The candle flickered back to life, and the monk lay motionless over the desk, his eyes open, staring at something no longer of this world. Before him rested the massive tome, complete a book whispered to have been written with the hands of a demon, a book the world would one day call the Devil's Bible. The first light of dawn struck the heavy stone walls of the monastery as silence lingered inside. When the monks entered the cell, they found the scribe collapsed over the desk. His eyes were open, yet he seemed to see nothing, gazing into a place far beyond this world. On the table lay a colossal book. Even at first glance, it appeared more like a creation of some otherworldly force than a human work. Its cover was dark, bound in a strange leather that felt cold and unsettling to the touch. One of the monks, trembling, opened it. The pages turned with a weight that felt alive. Then they all recoiled at once. For within the middle of the manuscript, they found the illustration, the one that would haunt legends for centuries. This was unlike any icon or sacred depiction they had ever seen. The devil was drawn not to be understood, but to diminish anyone who looked upon him. The page looked as if it were made of living skin, and the pigments had not faded with age. They glowed like embers, trapped beneath ash. The creature was shown crouching, knees raised, claws ready to tear into the earth. Its massive feet did not seem to stand on soil, but rather on the very ground of a boiling hell. The body was humanoid, but misshapen. Ribs protruded, shoulders hunched unnaturally high. The skin was something between scorched copper and dark, burned flesh. But the most unbearable part was the eyes. They were not perfectly round. The lines around them wavered as if the eyes were drawn on the edge of a swirling void. Anyone who dared to meet their gaze felt something deep within. Those eyes were hungry. Those eyes were waiting. And those eyes did not forget. No one could look at the page for long. One monk dropped to his knees, his voice shaking. No human hand could have drawn this. This is a face mankind was never meant to see. The devil's horns curled sharply, not merely emerging from the skull, but reaching outward, as if they could pierce the heart of anyone reading the page. The tongue slipped from between its lips, forked like that of a serpent analyzing its prey. Its mouth was open, yet there was no sound. And perhaps that was the most terrifying part. The devil in the portrait was screaming silently. It was as if every person who looked at the page was forced to imagine the scream themselves, deep within their own mind. The abbot finally closed the manuscript. Though his hands trembled uncontrollably, his face had lost all color. For hours he could only repeat, "This book was not written by the hand of man." Some monks refused to sleep unless the page was closed. Others swore that even when it was shut, they could feel those eyes watching them from the dark. And so, the devil's portrait within the Codex Gigas became a terror that survived centuries, an image whispered about in fear. wherever the manuscript's legend traveled. Codex Gigas. The enormous manuscript soon became the most sacred, yet the most feared artifact in the entire monastery. At first, the monks were haunted only by the devil's portrait, but the rest of the text was just as unsettling. As they examined its pages, they realized the book was not merely a sacred scripture. It was a world contained between two covers, an entire medieval universe. It included a complete copy of the Old and New Testament, Isidore of Seville's Encyclopedia Etymologia, medieval medical treatments and remedies, court and legal records, calendars, lists of the dead, confessions and penance texts, and most disturbingly, rituals of exorcism and the binding of spirits. Some monks, after analyzing the structure of the manuscript, concluded, the one who wrote this was not merely a learned man. He carried an entire world inside his mind. But there was a deeper mystery. From the first page to the last, the handwriting appeared to be from a single hand, as if the massive book had been written in one breath. Scholars later determined that such a work should have taken at least 20 to 30 years to complete. And yet, the night the monk was sealed inside his cell, the codex was found finished by dawn. That truth ignited an even greater fear. Many years later, the book was taken to Sweden as war spoils, and today it remains locked away in a restricted chamber of the Swedish National Library. The room is not open to visitors. The book rests inside a thick, sealed glass display, only accessible by special permission. Still, among archivists and night guards, whispers circulate. Most do not like to pass by the door after sunset, because according to some, at night, the pages can be heard turning on their own. The air inside the room suddenly becomes cold as stone. The glass is found fogged, as if something has breathed upon it. And sometimes in the dark, the eyes of the devil's portrait are said to glimmer. One archivist, who asked to remain unnamed, confessed, "It felt like that page was calling to me. When I turned my head, I saw its eyes looking at me, and I heard a whisper in my mind, 'Read me.'"